Welcome back. Well, have you ever looked at JW.org lately on their website? We'll take a quick look here in just in a few minutes. But first of all, I want to talk about the thumbnail. Our world conditions worse today. And we talk about JW.org and how they create fear-mongering. Well, let's talk about fear-mongering. In case you don't know what fear-mongering means, fear-mongering is the action of deliberately arousing public fear or alarm about a particular issue. So when we look at fear-mongering, fear-mongering can have a strong psychological effects, which may be intended or unintended. Now, I think in the case of the Watchtower, they're intending it. And they designed the Watchtower to put fear, instill fear into the people. Why? So that they keep attending, they can control their flock. We're going to talk about this. One hypothesized effect is mean world syndrome. And that means that it's a proposed cognitive bias, whereas people may perceive that the world is more dangerous than it really is. So fear-mongering can make people fear the wrong things and use too many resources to avoid rare and unlikely dangers, while more probable dangers are ignored. For example, some parents have kept their children at home to prevent abduction, while they paid less attention to more common dangers, such as lifestyle disease. Never heard of that. It can be defined as diseases linked with one's lifestyle. And these diseases are non-communicable diseases. They are caused by a lack of physical activity, unhealthy eating, alcohol, substance use disorder, smoking tobacco, which can lead to heart disease, stroke, and obesity. So lifestyle disease, so you keep your kids at home, they sit on the couch, they don't get the proper exercise. The schools are designed with many people working together to help the children. Some people work together to exercise the children. Some people, they exercise, and it's different types of personalities that the children are in front of. So they get a mix of different teachers. At home, they get what they call lifestyle disease. So let's carry on. It talks about traffic accidents are more common for children that are at home. Why? Because they're not going to school. You know, at school they have the little signs, and there's a lot of care at schools teaching the children about traffic and obeying traffic laws. They don't get that at home. So that's where you get lifestyle disease. So fear-mongering can produce a rally around the flag effect by increasing support for incumbent political leaders. For example, official warnings about the risk of terrorist attacks have led to increased support for proposed policies of the U.S. presidents. And collective fear is likely to produce an authoritarian mentality. We're going to talk about this just for a moment. Authoritarian. Isn't that the Watchtower? It's an authoritarian mentality. It's a desire for a strong leader, strict discipline, punitiveness, intolerance, exobia. We're going to look this word up. It's xenophobia. New word to me. Xenophobia is a dislike or of a prejudice against people from other countries. So when we think of the Watchtower, everyone's taught this xenophobia by disliking the whole world. It's the whole world's wicked. Only the Watchtower people are the safe place to be. The rest of the world, be careful. It's run by Satan. We're going to learn about this in a little bit here. So this is what it produces: a fear or a dislike of anything perceived as being foreign or strange. Well, everything's foreign and strange to Watchtower people. When you're raised as a Jehovah's Witness, the whole world is foreign. It's made to be evil. So let's carry on. So less democracy, this is what this leads to, fear-mongering, according to the regality theory. And historically, the fact has been exploited by political entrepreneurs in many countries for the purpose such as increasing support for an authoritarian government, avoiding democratization, Kaiserization, however you say that, or preparing the population for war. So here's a couple of important points. Fear-mongering creates a government, an authoritarian government. Now, the Jehovah's Witnesses believe that they actually work underneath what they call a theocratic government. They say it's Jehovah, God's government. Now, Jehovah, of course, equals Watchtower. I say that in every video because it does. It equals Watchtower. They throw Jehovah out there so many times to get the people to believe that everything that comes out of the Watchtower's mouth is from God. And it's a very slick method. People believe it. People believe what's in front of them, what's written, what's put into movies. So what does it prepare them for? An authoritarian government. And isn't that what the Watchtower is? It's an authoritarian government within. They do their own governing. They actually do their own legal work. They do their own judicial cases. It's all tried by three elders in each congregation, and they're selected as a body of elders. They're the judges. They try every single civil or criminal offense. And a lot of times the criminal offenses get covered up within the religion because of that authoritarian government. So it says here that it prepares the population for war. And isn't that what's happening within the Watchtower? This authoritarian government is preparing the members for a spiritual warfare. They always have war in their minds. So I'll put a link to what I just read. It's from Wikipedia on fear-mongering. But we're going to take a look at is the world conditions worse today? And I'm going to take you to my display here. And proof that life is getting better for humanity in the 5 charts. We're going to read this just briefly. I'm only going to read 2 lines basically from each of the points. And I'll pin the article in my descriptions. So here it is, poverty. To see where we are coming from, we must go far back in time. 30, 50 years is not enough. When you only consider what the world looked like during our lifetime, it's easy to make the mistake of thinking the world is relatively static. The rich, healthy, and the educated parts of the world here, and the poor, uneducated, sick regions there. And to falsely conclude that it always was like that and will always be like that. But we're going to take a different look. They're looking at a 200-year. We're going to go 200 years back. So researchers measure extreme poverty as living on less than $1.90 a day. These poverty figures take into account non-monetary forms of income for poor families today and in the past. And this is important, particularly because of subsistence farming. The poverty measure is also corrected for different price levels in different countries and adjusted for price changes over inflation. So when it comes to poverty, let's take a look here. It says the media is overly obsessed with reporting single events with things that go wrong. It does not nearly pay enough attention to the whole world and how the whole world works. Now, years ago you'd starve, but today the whole world works together. If one country has a shortage, other countries kick in. There's the world works together in the poverty thing. We have a way less poverty than we had 200 years ago. 200 years ago, it says in 1820, only a tiny elite enjoyed higher standards of living, while the vast majority of people lived in conditions that we would call extreme poverty today. And since then, the share of extremely poor people fell continually. More and more world regions industrialized and thereby increased productivity, which made it possible to lift more people out of poverty. In 1950, 3/4 of the world was living in extreme poverty. In 1981, it was still 44%. And for last year, the research suggests that the share in extreme poverty is falling below 10%. That's huge, folks. That's huge. In our time, we can see this. And if you could think of a time back in history, do you want to live 100 years ago, World War I, World War II? Do you want to live in the 1800s when all of these little wars were happening, civil wars all over the place? Or do you want to go back 1,000 years and live back then? You see, today is the best time to be living as far as poverty goes. And when we think of the world, we think of poverty. Isn't that what Jesus talked about? He looked at feeding the poor. And in fact, it's in the Bible to look after the poor. So poverty is less today. Here's the chart. It's a way up way up here in the green compared to 1820s. Literacy. How did the education of the world population change over this period? The chart below shows the share of world's population that is literate over the past 2 centuries. You see, there was only a tiny amount of elite that were able to read and write back in the time of Russell when he invented the religion. But today's education, included in today's richest countries, is again a very recent achievement, and it was in the past 2 centuries that literacy became the norm for the entire population. So school, our children have to go to school. It's mandatory. So they have to get an education. In the 1820s, only every 10th person was literate, 1 out of 10. In the 1930s, it was every 3rd, and now we are 85% globally literate. So if you were alive in the 1800s, there was 9 in 10 chances that you weren't able to read. So guys like Russell would get up in the pulpit and do this big speech, Rutherford, and everyone would believe him because they couldn't read. So they just thought he sounded smart. So now here's the chart for literacy. Health. One reason we do not see progress is that we are unaware of how bad the past was. In the 1800s, the health conditions of our ancestors were such that around 43% of the world's newborns died before their 5th birthday. So do I have to read on? Health-wise, we have advancements that far surpass what they were back 100 years ago or even 50 years ago. If we had the healthcare system of 50 years ago, I would not be here today. So it's very easy to see that our healthcare systems have greatly improved. So it talks about global child mortality. The children of today live a lot longer. Child mortality was down to about 4.3%, 100-fold lower than 2 centuries ago. So things have changed. Freedom. Political freedom and civil liberties are at the very heart of development, as they are both a means for development and an end of development. So our freedoms are much better today than they were yesterday. And this is a chart. Fertility. If you click on absolute in any of the previous charts, you see the increase of world population over the past 2 centuries. The world population was around 1 billion in the year 1800 and has increased 7-fold since then. And education. None of the achievements over the past 2 centuries could have been achieved without the expansion of knowledge and education. And you see the Jehovah's Witness, the Watchtower, they are against higher education, completely against it. They don't believe in it, and that's what these rulers that rule these cults, that's what they do. They keep the people uneducated because just like back in the days of Russell, only 1 out of 10 people could read, so everyone believes what's said. And the Jehovah's Witnesses are against their members going on the internet and doing research, such that I'm doing right now. So now, education is a way up. Why do we know this? The motivation for this history of global living conditions was a survey result that documented the very negative perspective of global development that most of us have. And how does that fit in with the empirical evidence? So it's interesting when we look at history, and we can see that we're living in the best time ever in the history of mankind. The successful transformation of our living conditions was possible only because of collaboration, and such a transformation would be impossible for a single person to accomplish. And that's what we're doing in our XJW community with the Be Free 2023. We're collaborating. Collaboration is how the world works, but not with Jehovah's Witnesses. They feel it's them against the world. So that brings an end to that article. We're going to flip over to JW.org website. And when you go under their website today, this is what you see. Who will save the civilians? What does the Bible say? And then they feature, did the Bible predict the way people think and act today? And we did one on Halloween. If you haven't seen that, it's in our video list. And bad things happen to good people. So we're going to take a look at these 3 articles to show how fear-mongering works. So when you design a website and you look at this website, and this website will change every 3 or 4 days, And then this article will move down in this column and they come out with a new one. So what I notice on their front page here, it's fear-mongering. Who will save the civilians? Did the Bible predict the way people are today? And bad things happen to good people. So let's look at this. We'll take a quick look. And who will save the civilians? What does the Bible say? It talks about the Gaza Strip conflict and the reason for hope. The Bible says there will be hope. It doesn't say there will be hope for the Gaza Strip. The Bible doesn't talk about this. And Jehovah's Witnesses, they take the Bible, they take all the negative stuff that it says about there will be wars, reports of wars. Well, Jesus was talking about the time that he was living in. And the Romans came in and took over the temple in 70 CE. He said those things are going to happen. So he is mostly talking about that time period. As far as today, there's always been wars. There's always been reports of wars. Wars are common throughout history, but there's less war today per population than there was yesterday. So these guys talk about a reason for hope. Well, Jesus Christ. Well, if you look at world conditions today, more people are being fed. There's less problems, more education, better living conditions, better sanitation, better medical. I would say maybe we are living in God's new kingdom. It's better. We're not in the end. It looks like it's better. You see, you could look at it that way. But you see, they fearmonger and they take a few scriptures, and here's their concluding. Soon God's kingdom will intervene in earth's affair. The Bible foretold the wars and reports of wars that we see happening today. It doesn't say that. It's you go to that scripture, Jesus was talking about you're going to see wars and reports of wars. Time of the end. End of what? Well, it was the end of the Jewish system of things back then. Okay, well, let's get out of here and see who will save the civilians. Well, Jesus. That's what they're saying. Not the governments, not the humanitarians. No, it's Jesus. So Jesus must be running the earth because a lot of the civilians are getting saved. More so than yesterday, or more so than in the 1800s, or more so than 1,000 years ago. There's more civilians being saved. So let's look at the next article. Did the Bible predict the way people act today? It shows, look at the picture there. It shows this smug person. It shows all the violence, this rioting going on. It shows this old lady with money going out of her hands. This young lady here with looking at the internet, tied to YouTube probably. And this guy over here, he's pissed off at something and he's hollering. And this guy looks like he's one of the Watchtower people. He's in control of it all. I don't know. They're trying to depict this guy as some evil businessman. Well, did the Bible predict the way people think and act today? Yes. Why read any further? You see, today, here's what people are. The Bible predicted this. Well, it says the Bible foretold that people in general would change for the worse during our time, and indicated that this change would lead to a large-scale moral decay and a collapse of social values. Well, according to what I just read, and according to history, we have better social values today than we did yesterday. In fact, the social values are getting to the point where they're looking at second-generation children, and they're wondering why and how these religions abused second-generation children. And they're all coming out. And they're finding that the Bible could be responsible. Or is it how religions, sects, and cults take the Bible and apply it to people? Perhaps that's what Jehovah's Witnesses do. Absolutely. They use the Bible for their benefit. They use the Bible to portray and to advance their business model. And their business model is to get more contributions, to get more members, and to get their soldiers out delivering their Watchtower and the Awake magazines. Now, what did the Bible, they talk about in this article, what did the Bible foretell about people's thinking and actions in our day? It says the Bible describes a variety of negative traits and actions that would be commonplace. Well, that's been going on forever. So, negative traits, selfishness. In fact, there's less selfishness today because there's less hunger. The world wants to share and help people out. That's how this world works. So, I disagree with this article completely. Greedy, there's less. Proud, slanderous. these things are coming out. Narcissism, these proud acts that rulers have, like the Watchtower, they don't fly anymore. But the Watchtower is bringing out what they are here in a lot of these articles. So they go on to say, what effect would selfish people have on others? Well, of course, not good. Why would people in general change for the worse? It's all about, this is a very negative article. How should we react to negative changes in people? It says there, stay away from those people. You see, God's word states, stay away from those people. 2 Timothy. See how they make sure they draw a division between their people and the rest of the world. This is how they do it in these fear-mongering articles. Would everyone become worse? No, the Bible foretold that some would be sighing and groaning over all the detestable things. So they're saying some would come out and join them. Will all human society ultimately descend into chaos? They're saying no. Human society will not break down completely. Instead, God will soon remove the people who are determined to violate his standards. So God will come in and remove these people? I don't think so. He will establish a new earth, a new human society here on earth where meek people will live. It's not what the Bible says. You see, they're going to Psalms 37. It's a Psalms. It's like poetry. And they're trying to, and the Israelites were wandering through the desert, dreaming of oases. They all they had was sand and heat, and they had no food. And so these are some of the Psalms that came about that made the earth look like a paradise back in the Old Testament. There's nothing in the New Testament that talks about this. It's a new heavens, and it says a new earth. But it's not talking about a paradise, nothing like that. So they say this hope is not a fantasy. It is. It's fictional. These guys built a fictional story. They cherry pick a few scriptures here and there to back it. And then they say, even now, the Bible is helping people to change their lives in harmony with God's righteous ways. Well, if you go to the Jehovah's Witness religion, they're hiding crimes. The religion hides crimes, CSA crimes. They have instructed their elders to shred records all over the world. The police, when they have to get search warrants to come in, and then they say, well, we don't have any records dealing with the CSA case. And in amongst all their publishers is hidden some people that are pedophiles. They walk about. They have not been rehabilitated. There's a way more rehabilitation on the other side of the fence. Those 3 elders in an elder body do not have the skills to rehabilitate pedophiles or to assess crimes, criminal activity. These are all hidden within the congregation. No one knows about that. So they've went from bad to worse, this organization. We talk about growing and getting better. They're talking about themselves getting worse. Now, let's go to the last article. Bad things happen to good people. And I'll paste all these articles in the descriptions below so you guys can look at them. Now, bad things happen to good people. Why? Since Jehovah God is the creator of all things and is almighty, many people may be inclined to hold him responsible for everything that takes place in the world. Well, if he created it all, there's a certain amount of responsibility. If you're a car manufacturer and you manufacture a car and there's a defect and people die because of that car, you're liable. So there is liability in the creator for creating a world like we live in. So I debate that, how they bring that out. Now, being in the world, being in the wrong place at the wrong time. They state time and unexpected events overtake them all. So when events happen, they can happen to anybody, good and bad. And I agree with that. You can't be righteous and expect not to have bad things happen. We live in a world where there's hurricanes and all kinds of things happening. So bad things do happen. But less than 100 years ago, or less per population than 200 years ago, or 1,000 years ago. We are living in a time in history when conditions are the best. So are humans responsible? Well, they say part of the blame for the wicked lies with humans. Then they go on to talk about this. Then they talk about karma. Is it a cause? They say no. They don't believe in karma. They say if you were to ask someone from Hindu or Buddhist background the question posed to cover the magazine, you would likely hear this: bad things happen to good people because of the law of karma. They're reaping the fruitage of what they did in their previous lives. So, yeah, all of a sudden they're experts on everyone else's religion. So they don't know if karma is real or not. Again, this is their fictitious story. This is designed to get their people never to look into Buddhism or any of these other religions because they're from the devil. The Watchtower is the truth. So they throw karma out the door. And then they go to the primary cause. Yes, this is right at the bottom. Well, I was wrong. I always say the last paragraph. This is the second last paragraph. So the primary cause of wickedness, though, is not man, Satan, the devil. Originally, a faithful angel of God did not stand fast in the truth. Blah, blah, blah. So it's nice when you can blame everything bad on something. You have an scapegoat. You see, that doesn't help people to fix things. People, you see, you could blame the fact that, well, we have no more trees. We're cutting down too many trees to print Watchtower magazines. Satan's fault. Satan's fault because there's not enough trees. Like, where do you stop and where do you start in blame, in this blame game? Well, if you're a narcissist religion, you want to blame everything on Satan and take the blame off yourself. And that's what this religion has done. This whole thing is the world's lying in the power of the wicked one. And there are other spiritual creatures. You see, everything in the Watchtower is fear-mongering. It's to make people believe that there's an invisible spirit realm. It's getting worse and worse. Look at the wars going on today. Well, folks, it's not getting worse. So this is fear-mongering. So that's all I have for your breakdown on jw.org today. It is fear-mongering in the worst way. And when we look at history and we look at the time that we're living in, we're living in the best time in history right now. Well, that's kind of the rest of the story on that one, folks. And until next time, keep living your life with love. See you later. Oh, hello. My name is Vern. Join the channel. We cover JW World News, and we give you the rest of the story. Today, we're going to the Watchtower, and we have lives on Tuesday nights and Saturdays, and an excellent community. So join the channel and watch as we crash into the Watchtower. Here it is. I see it coming. Woo! Join us as we report in on the Watchtower.